Hello and welcome to another video. So we're covering another HavenCraft deck. This one is a fair bit different to the last one. It's a much more control oriented deck instead of Lion, which honestly isn't a bad thing. It does favor, of course, amulets and getting the pressure with those amulets onto the board. So we're going to get right into it and take a look. So the first matchup here isn't really anything to write home about. I just wanted to show off how good this first bit of pressure can be. Then we have a couple of actually decent games after this one. So going to be very quick, but the early pressure this deck can put out can actually be quite solid, even if you aren't going for a more late game pressure. Also, Featherfall Hourglass isn't a bad turn 1 play. I kind of like it as a turn 1 play, but it can also be much better in the late game, so it's an all-round good card for this deck. And it can definitely get you out of some very sticky positions. So the advantage was my opponent really didn't have anything turn 1, which going up against Rune, always good. Turn 2, not very impressive, Witch of Foresight. And really from here, it was just a matter of kind of steamrolling, taking turn 3, and having a absolutely insane amount of pressure going forward. With a 3-2 and a 3-5. Plus, of course, Sister Falconeer giving us Divine Birdsong is just absolutely nuts. Although, I wish I could have attacked, but unfortunately, not being able to kind of sucked. But again, more pressure. Really not easy to make a comeback from an early board like that. Which is why this game was so quick. Another knowledge into an insight, so definitely playing the spell boosting game. But obviously, getting nothing to counter this was pretty much the end of them from the beginning, so no surprise there. So now we get into what are the couple of longer games we've got. One against Haven, which no surprise it's longer. Haven mirrors typically go the longest of most matches these days. A Blackened Scripture, Featherfall, and Holy Lord aren't bad, but Holy Lord is probably a little too late game for what I want. I was aiming for much better pressure. Unfortunately, Blackened Scripture isn't really that kind of pressure. We do have the Featherfall and the God Scale, which will be actually alright. Oh, even better, we can go for, of course, a Great Jeweled Priestess as a follow-up turn 3 into the God Scale. Although God Scales probably would have been better on turn 2, I still wanted at least a 1-drop, just in case I needed to counter anything. Plus, this holds out a little bit longer, which, honestly, considering our hand, isn't a bad option. Forbidden Teachings, not really a problem at this point. Does mean they can't play any followers next turn, though. At least from their hand. Alright, so looks like they're playing Holy Lion. Should be pretty obvious once you see something like that Holy Lion is reasonably likely. Since there are so many good removal options these days for Haven, compared to the drought we used to have when rotation started, but Temple of Holy Lion, that's definitely a Lion deck for sure. No surprise that we see double Lions. At least this shouldn't be too hard to counter. We've actually got an extremely solid hand ourselves, and Blackened Scripture is a great removal. Now we just set up some decent board. And get to use Petra, a card that I haven't really got to use much since it was released. It's always been quite a nice card, I've just always never had a chance to use it due to really no deck supporting it very well. But this deck doesn't do a bad job at protecting things like Bane. So no real shock there. I am surprised they didn't target the other one, but I guess that's life sometimes. So we do go for the Mori, and we also have the Darkhind. Best way to remove both of these at once and still develop quite a good board. While also going for a little bit of damage, spreading out the totals. Just in case they try to clear as much of this as they can. And Peace Weaver isn't really going to be enough. Not on its own at least. But they're definitely going to put up a fight. That is for sure. Another Holy Lion Crystal. Not a fun little match, but an interesting one. Might have had more luck if I had played Sister of Judgment, maybe. As then I could have probably just evoed. I think it would have killed the 4-4 and the 6-3, and then I could have just swung, which would have been okay. And held on to the Hector, but I wasn't 100% that would end up working out that way. It's been a while since I used Sister of Judgment and didn't want to take that risk. At least not yet. So now we're only 6 damage off lethal. Not far at all. And we have a very, very nice setup. If we could top deck a Garuda, we would actually be fine. As that would be 9 damage off it, which would be insane for this board.
Consider me impressed.
Just giving a little cheeky emote there. A little bit of fun. And this isn't a bad setup. So we can settle on this board, wait till next turn, and go all in. But they're definitely going to push these lions even harder now. Alright, so we have basically 1 in 3. And we did manage to hit the 1 in 3, which gave us a perfect lethal. I'm sure we could have probably come up with another way to do it, but that worked out just fine. And for the last match, we are going up against Shadow. Shadow is reasonably good. I mean, it's definitely one of the top decks at the moment. But this deck honestly has a fairly decent counter setup against Shadow. Just the cards that it runs naturally counter a lot of what Shadow does with board flooding. It's only really will become tricky in the kind of mid to late game where, of course, if Shadow has any kind of big board floods, then we could be in some trouble. Because, of course, the worst outcome is an Arcus play where they can just wipe everything continuously, and then we would be in some serious trouble. Seeing this Goblin does lead me to believe they're going for a very early aggressive style of play. Which, going against Haven, is usually the right choice. It's just this deck in particular is really heavy on counters. Although we don't really have a lot in our hand now, which is a little troublesome. But we can at least put some pressure down. I'm seeing that Evo and the Buffalo Bones. I'm not looking forward to that. And we are going to take a little bit of damage on top of it. And he's setting up potential draw. Definitely not what I want to see. At least we're going to be able to put a lot of threatening cards down ourselves while clearing out most likely the Grimoire. As clearing out Grimoire was going to be more important going into next turn. We don't want him to draw any more cards off that. Manifest of Fate, okay. Interesting. And they're going to trade the ghosts. Not the way I would have done that play, but not bad option, I guess. And that's not what we want. But this is Black in Scripture. Perfect way to deal with this. Now we just want something on board, just for that little bit of pressure before we go into a hind play. Probably wasn't the right choice, but I mean, we're going to deal with this very easily, so not really a problem. And now we get into what will be a much longer game, as we have to both deal with this while dealing damage. Omen of Craving. Luckily with no Hector for them, because it has rotated out, we're not in too much trouble. And really all we need to do now is keep dealing damage. And Ruler of Storms isn't very helpful right now. Vial of Torrent. Or Veil of Torrent, I think that's what that is. Either way. Not too bad. Still not great though. The Feather's definitely going to help us. And an Assault Priest into another Feather. Perfect setup. So we only need 3 damage to survive this board. And we will have lethal. And Lady of Flies on turn 9 is promising, since there's not much they could really get that would disrupt us here. That was probably what they were hoping for, and it honestly wasn't the best thing. Ward probably would have actually been better, although probably still wouldn't have been enough. So that is going to secure us the game. Couldn't ask for a much better ending to that. So if you guys did enjoy this video, this deck was a reasonable amount of fun to play and really wasn't that bad. It did about 50-50 on what I was playing with it, but of course, the more I adjusted to its playstyle, the easier it was to play, which is always the case with a deck like this that's a little more control orientated. So if you guys did enjoy the video, hit the like button and subscribe for more content. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, see ya.